Hello and welcome to Skeleton Songs.
Season 4 -- make a CRPG with us .mp4 brackets the final conflict exclamation mark question mark interrobang.
Do you sound tired by any
God, I'm
chance?
so flipping tired. I'm too tired even to say fucking.
We're really tired. We're working towards an alpha, and we just announced today that the alpha build is coming next week to 20 people that we randomly selected from a group of testers. But if anyone is listening to this and has been in a software job or a game dev job, they will know that the closer you get to release, basically the more soul is drained from your body by the gods. Because there's always more stuff to do, and it's great. I'm really proud of us this sprint, the last couple of weeks. I think we've done an incredible amount of work.
You said to me yesterday, the game's not nearly as janky as I remember it being last time I played it.
Yes, that's a different way of saying exactly what I've just said.
And I said it in a sly way, but actually it's what I wanted to hear from you, because you are both of our harshest critics, and it's what we got now is it's a playable prologue. So what we've got.
Okay, sorry, I just want to interject there because I feel like this is slightly misrepresenting the situation. That I may be our harshest critics.
Did I say harshest? I meant most exacting.
You did, but that wasn't my point. My point is that you are the one who's been flailing around saying, this hasn't got a special limited physical edition made of brass from the moon, so therefore this is not ready to be a pre-alpha.
You don't find brass on the moon, you only find brass on Mars.
See, another reason that we can't release the alpha. You heard it here first, chaps.
The thing about, I can't remember if I said this in the previous episode or not.
Time has no meaning, it's a flat circle.
But when I've been making games now 16 years, and the first game I made, I put the alpha out the moment I could bear to. And in all the years since, two things have remained constant. One, it's really useful to get a pre-alpha, an alpha, a playtest version, whatever, out the moment you can bear to. And second, Jesus, you never want to. Because it's when everything can be perfect before anybody's seen it. Everything can achieve all the possible goals you've set for yourself. And this is a lot of reasons why people never make it to any kind of release, because reality starts stealing in.
I've been so surprised by that over the course of my professional career in game dev. I mean, not that I thought much about it before I got into it, but in hindsight, I really would have assumed that far more games that were started were released, even if they were released in a state that didn't get them particularly good reviews or particularly impressive sales.
The thing about game devs is, if they're in it for the joy of it, which some are, some aren't, if they're in it for the joy of it, they really like making games. They don't like releasing games. Releasing games is a whole different bag of
I've never, ever
beans.
met a game developer who enjoyed launch. Not a single one. And I think just to be clear, I think most people get into games because they're excited about it, and most people really enjoy making games. There are lots of bits of game dev that people
What I mean
don't
is,
like.
if your eyes are light up when people say quarterly returns, rather than people say resource-based narrative, then obviously you are excited by release.
Well, this is one of the many problems with the industry at large. I think we've talked before about how game dev attracts creatives usually from a particular set of disciplines. So if you're an artist, you might want to come and make art for games. If you're a coder, you might want to come and make games.
If you're not a very good writer, often you want to work in games.
We'll come back to that. But what I was going to say is, if you are a middle manager or somebody really good at HR or somebody who's really good at setting up startup companies, you're probably not going to come to games. There are those people, but they're not the kind of classic starter model kit for the game dev, which means that as an industry we have a hell of a lot of really brilliant creatives and not that much kind of structural behind the scenes managerial stuff, and that's often why the industry is known for chaos.
I don't want to sound too enthusiastic. A little rubbish creatives too. No, the thing about alphas is one, it tells you anybody's actually going to like it, or more importantly, what bits they are going to like and what bits they aren't. So again, 16 years, I'm always surprised that the things that you think will be the problem sometimes are the problem. But the things that are really the problem are usually something else. Until you get it in front of people, you just don't know it. And the other thing, what's the rather nasty phrase we use? All the juice runs out.
What?
It's like,
You mean that you squish it into an alpha,
yeah,
and it makes you do all the bits and pieces that you weren't thinking about doing, but you need to do before you can actually get it in a player's hands?
Exactly, yes. So things like, really, really daft example, I think I mentioned this last time actually. I was looking at the credits and the version news on the main screen, and I thought, oh yeah, we actually need real information in there, don't we? Rather than the placeholder text we've had for 3 months. And as soon as you put real information in there, then it then you realise that the original format doesn't quite fit. All this sort of thing. And when you play through the beginning of the game and think, actually, that's a bit staccato, that doesn't work, let's tidy it up, because you've been looking at it with your developer hat on rather than your playtest hat on for the past 6 months, and suddenly you realise how it needs to look. And you can make a decision about whether it's going to look like that now or in 6 months, but you have to make that decision. And that's why we're tired, because that's what we've been doing all week.
Well, one of the things that we discovered today that the alpha needed, the pre-alpha, was an injection of period-appropriate beatnik slang.
Yeah.
Would you like to educate the masses on 1940s beatnik slang?
Yeah, if they dig it.
Don't be a cube.
I'm cool. Yeah, I fucking love cube.
Cube
it's
is
like
great.
square, but more. There's Bessie Bloom. Bessie Bloom is she's the cook, among other things. And she got there
in our game, to be clear.
In our game,
which we should probably say the name of, which is Travelling at Night.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have a cook.
Well, we do. It's me.
I have cooked.
Do you want to go into how many potato croquettes you cooked?
Do you think our listeners would be interested in? I was very generous to my potato croquettes.
Anyway, they weren't potato croquettes.
I was very tired.
They weren't. They were potato waffles, which was so much better. Anyway, sorry, back to Bessie Bloom.
Bessie Bloom, she's very loosely based on Blossom Dearie, a singer from the mid-20th century, although she was born 20 years before, and the similarity sort of largely ends with the shape of their career. But she's a bit cash, and some of the versions of Spence you can play don't really like cash, so you can get grumpy at her and tell you to stop calling you Spence. and she's like,
hey Daddy,
sure Mr. Hobson, cube. But the thing, so Bessie hung with the Zazus, who were these wonderfully dressed,
they are so cool,
youth troublemakers in France, particularly associated with annoying the Nazis
through fashion.
Through fashion. And we got a couple of ex-Zazus lurking around the Sanitarium aujourd'hui. Bessie ran with them, and so I mean, there's no Zazu slang in English anyway, because it's French, and I wouldn't know where to find it. But she was, in the jazz scene in New York, and she's, I guess, a sort of proto-beatnik. But the beatniks really didn't emerge until the 1950s. I was
not using the correct term.
Well, but that's the thing, there isn't really a correct term. I guess they were the beat generation. But a lot of the slang, there's this double problem. On the one hand, if you say you dig it, or I'm hip to that, or those cats knew, then you sound antique, right?
You do. You sound really old.
So it sounds kind of naff. So I've been trying to work around that. And the other thing, of course, is that just from a historical point of view, I'm using stuff that's slightly anachronistic. So when I have somebody say like, "What it is," as a greeting, that's more of a 60s thing as far as I can tell. But I really liked it.
What it is?
What it is, Lottie. Hey, what's shaking?
Well, yeah, that I get.
What it is.
Okay, I would feel like I missed the conversation that we didn't have.
Yeah. Far out.
I think I'm too square to be a beat.
If I were any square, you could use me to cut up bread.
I literally sent my dad this meme today. Well, it's not a meme, it's a video of, I think it's the something like the Taiwanese ambassador to Finland, and he is performing in his death metal band, because there's some like let's be cool about Taiwan thing. And my dad used to be in the British Foreign Office and used to be an ambassador, and by the comparison to this guy, The British ambassadors are so square. We're all like, oh yes, no, we'd quite like to make a deal with you, country. And all the other ambassadors are like, let me show you my death metal band. And he's not even wearing a shirt.
Say the line that diplomats are allowed to say if a nuclear attack has been launched.
So you get training when you go into the diplomatic service. I don't know if this is still true, but Brits are known for being non-dramatic and subtle. And particularly in the diplomatic service, you can't go around having opinions about things. It's absolutely not allowed. So the diplomats were taught, when my father was being taught, that the most extreme situation is obviously that you are the ambassador to another country that has just launched nuclear weapons at the UK. Right? That's a pretty serious situation. And in this scenario, all the diplomats in training were told that there is this line that you're supposed to use to really give the other nation what for. So if you are the ambassador to the country, when they've just launched nukes at London, you march into whatever their centre of power is, you demand to see the person in charge, and you tell them that, and I'm quoting here, that is a matter to which Her Majesty's government cannot remain indifferent. And then presumably the war ends, because everyone's like, oh, you've made me see the error of my ways.
Well, now the Queen's dead, no one will care.
Oh, Queenie, she is so great. We're not even royalists, and we like to. Sorry, back to see we are square. Bessie would not approve.
God bless the Queen. Bessie's it's the first time I think I've written a character who's explicitly American. So I'm sure this is why alphas are useful. I'll get speakers of American English sending me emails saying,
"Hey, Daddy-o."
Hey, Daddy-o. I don't dig your That nobody uses it anyhow like that. Nobody calls it a Western omelette.
What's a Western omelette?
It's got like ham and bell peppers.
Okay, you're even using the word bell pepper.
Yeah, I've got native.
You have. You're infected.
You know what they call bars? Not Americans. Americans call bars.
What's happening?
But allegedly the beatniks call bars gin mills. I like that. Gin mills.
Like windmills.
Like windmills. But more euphonious, gin mills.
But they tend to fall over more.
Depends how many people you put in them. Both bars and windmills. God, I'm tired. Sorry, people.
Well, I spent
Yeah, let's talk about what you've been doing. Shadows.
You would not believe how difficult shadows are. So we're doing apparently something quite bizarre. So isometric games are, if anyone's listening and has no idea what they are games that have a particular type of perspective. And there's actually different terms that specifically define what isometric means. Often there's even like a gym term for isometric lifts, which I'm always very confused by when I go to classes and they tell you something isometric and I think, oh, I'm back in the office. But anyway, the key thing about an isometric game is that
you mean like elevators?
No.
You don't mean elevators.
No, I mean like you lift your leg in an isometric way.
I thought it was like a really...
You see, it's a chaos situation.
A lift where all the sides were the same size.
No.
The vertices were identical. No. Okay, fine. Right.
How would you define an isometric game?
I'd say it's different from an orthographic game, but I can't remember how. I'm too tired.
Okay. Well, the key thing is
the point about isometric game is it's pretending to be a particular angle on the world, so it looks like it's 3D, and you're seeing two sides of everything.
Yes, and you don't have perspective. So while you need to make it look a bit like you have perspective, which occasionally means you need to lie through art, it doesn't. Basically, a long corridor does not get smaller at the other end. It always stays the same size.
Long corridors don't get smaller at the other end, otherwise you won't be able to go through them unless you were very short.
Don't make me do the Dougal meme.
Ariana Grande can do it. Hobbits can do it.
She's very small. And as a result, the key word you said there was pretending. Isometric games pretend, right? And they look 3D because you've got a character that is moving through a game world. But I learned, having started this project, that actually most isometric games are not 3D at all. They are usually 2D pretending to be 3D. And we are doing something very similar, except we're doing it even more hardcore than others, accidentally. Because, for example, Disco Elysium, I understand, is a 2D painted background, which they have then overlaid with a very basic 3D rendering of the landscape. So they can do things like shadows and they can stop characters walking through buildings. And then they are using for the player characters 3D models that are painted to look as much like the 2D painted background as possible. And this allows them to do lots of beautiful things with sort of 3D things like shadows and lighting and depth and all this stuff. but still have it in a mostly 2D environment. But we haven't done that.
And this is to be clear. Again, you mentioned the DE phrase. It's what a lot of other games do. And when like a year ago, I sat down and typed in. I do the sound effect. Typed into Google, how do you make a CRPG? I just destroyed the audio. One of the things that came out was people said, well, you know, you can, if you want to make an isometric game, you can do the whole thing in 3D, which is quite expensive and complicated.
And to be clear, we have absolutely zero experience in anything 3D at all.
Or you can do everything in 2D, or you can do like the backgrounds in 2D and the characters in 3D, or you can do the backgrounds in 3D and the characters in 2D if you like. And I was like, well, why would you do that? And it's, well, if you do the backgrounds in 3D, then you know what's in front of other things.
We thought, that sounds easy.
Yeah, we just say what things are in front of things. You know when the characters go behind them or not, and the rest of it. Because that's what 3D's for, is what's going on.
Sorting layers, it'll be fine.
Yeah, we did it. And
now...
yeah. Well, the first part of the game is one of the most compact parts of the game, and it's very crowded with lots of things. And Lottie panicked.
I'm sorry.
And she thought, this beautifully proportioned 1920s style house.
30s?
Yes, sorry, 30s style house.
Beg your pardon.
I'm such a cube. It'll be people will be bored, so I need to put lots of tchotchkes in, knickknacks, gewgaws.
I just wanted to make it look fun and inviting.
Period appropriate, and it does. It looks really fun and really inviting.
But it turns out that was a terrible idea.
Every time Spencer turns around, he knocks over something expensive. Or
worse, he doesn't.
He doesn't. Yeah, he goes behind it instead. So we found solutions for all of this. You may see the occasional clipping glitch, and once you're out in the world or in bigger environments, it's fine. It's easier. But it turns out if you don't do a 3D game, it's much easier because you don't have to do a 3D game. On the other hand, what 3D says is you're in front and you're behind,
which is quite important. It turns out.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is if Travelling at Night ends up with Spencer in a void, having walked very slowly across some sort of flat plain like an ice field, then that's definitely a narrative choice, and not because we got so sick of what things should appear in front of other things. And the next time we play an isometric game, I want everyone listening to this to look at the scene and think, have they left a suspiciously large amount of space for the character to walk around? And is there a weird amount of padding around that tree? And the answer is because it's bloody hard to make 2D know what's in front or behind.
We got the first art from Berlin through from our artist today. And Berlin in 1948... Secret History's world after the war in the Sun and the war in the world and all the shit that went down. Berlin is an unusual environment, and there's lots of very striking things going on. The sticky widows and the red lights and the Ministry of Cherries and all the rest of it. But you know what's really noticeable about Berlin?
What's really noticeable, Daddy?
Everything's been blown up.
Yeah,
there's lots of open spaces.
But it's looking really good.
It is looking really good, and actually, seriously, I was delighted when I started deciding which. But we needed some bit of the Soviet sector and a bit of the Allied sector, the British sector, in fact. Rah rah, God save the Queen. Was and the place to do it turned out to be the Tiergarten, the big park at the heart of the city with a zoo on the one side, and on to Den Linden on the other side, which is the bit you see in all the films. It's got the Brandenburg Gate, and it's all just sort of lots of really interesting bits really close together. And we had to fudge it much less than usual. Obviously, CRPG cities are smaller than real cities because you can't take half an hour to walk across a CRPG scene.
Yeah, it's not terribly interesting, is it?
But Prague, I'm very pleased with the Prague map. Adrian did a bang-up job on that. But
Adrian is our freelancer.
Adrian is our freelancer.
He's doing a great job if you're listening, Adrian.
But we took some liberties with the geography.
You did basically do a Tetris cube.
Yeah. And we had to take fewer liberties in Berlin. But yeah, Berlin, they cut down all the trees for firewood.
Thanks, Nazis.
And they well, that's because, at the time, they were losing the war. It wasn't like the Nazis did it.
No, little did they know that it would make us an isometric game easier.
They turned the Tiergarten into a series of allotments. So all the hedges are gone. So that makes
series of 2D planes.
Yeah, precisely.
No, that is looking good.
War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
You've been writing, you've been fixing bugs.
I've been writing. I did a last minute improvement to my tool set. Wow, I thought now my iteration of my cycle of write dialogue, hit play, wait 20 seconds for Unity to compile, play, realise a mistake, take notice of several mistakes, change, write again. The Sisyphean carousel of fire. I thought, now I've done this, I've finally found a way to reliably change the dialogue and then just hit reload quickly and not need to go through the play recompile thing. Because I kept trying to do that, I kept running into problems. And I did that today. And then it had a weird side effect where all the links to the nodes kept disappearing as I went through. You ended up trapped in a sort of the conversational equivalent of the tear gas after the Second World War. But I fixed that, so that's good. And I put spoilers if you think you got any. If you signed up for the alpha, stop listening for the next 30 seconds. I put a couple of results in where you can get results. I put results in where you can get results. I put a couple of outcomes in where you can get results from being nice to people and winning them over, and a couple where if you annoy the fuck out of them, they'll just tell you what you need in order to make you go away.
Well, that you were going to put in analytics, right? Because you want to know from this alpha what kind of options people are choosing. And I wonder if that will in any way dent the sort of folk belief that like 95% of CRPG players always are really nice, because most people are basically conditioned by society to be nice. And we, I think, generally get a happier feeling of dopamine and self-worth if we go around being a hero than we do if we go around kicking babies. But I understand that narratively it's important to have a negative or unkind choice because it allows role playing and because it basically differentiates between the choice that you made, which was nice, and the choice that you didn't, which was horrible.
That's it.
So I'm interested to see if the analytics show any difference in what you'd expect to see, which is that most people are going saying, "Hello, can I help you?"
I think, yeah, you're exactly right. But one of the reasons the mean choices are in there is so that people can take a choice and feel like they made a decision, and occasionally they can be cathartic and just sort of kick the pig if the pig's being annoying them.
To be clear, no pigs, virtual or otherwise, will be harmed in the making of this game.
Have we got any pigs in yet? Let's put some pigs in.
I'm pretty certain we have piggies somewhere.
Well, we got ham. So technically,
that's not the same.
Well, so one of the reasons is you just not take them, and one of the reasons is because people do want a mean run through. But the thing about writing a game set in Europe with no combat is CRPGs generally operate in a space where there's sort of sociopathic wall next to the fourth wall, where at some point you could just say, "Oh, I'm going to kill everyone, and I don't care if it bugs up the game." If you are working in 1948 Europe, you just can't. You've basically got to have conversations with people. If you spend all your time behaving like a total narcissistic arsehole, then they're going to stop talking to you, or they're going to keep talking to you, and it's going to be wildly implausible. So it's been a small challenge, because it's a fairly standard sort of thing, to go through and make sure that you can feel that Spencer can express your personality and your version of Spencer, while at the same time encouraging you to stay within the bounds of basically polite societies. And the gentleman thing has been a good tool for that, I think. But the fact we can say, Spencer had a reputation for being the best dressed man in the Suppression Bureau, the fact that his face is based on David Niven, the fact that he's got this sort of slightly different
technically the artist has to interrupt and say his face is a mix 50-50 between David Niven and John Hurt.
Of course you're right.
And I think he actually looks more like John Hurt, but his fashion and mien is very David Niven. And I was going to say, do you want to talk about why you picked Niven? Because he is, I think, maybe not that well known outside of the UK.
I do.
And also such a character.
I do. Let me do a brief discursus through just so one of the things about the characterisation is, I thought when you got 9 different passions you can focus on, things like whimsy or compassion or cynicism or honour. And
I love your Picasso point.
And we'll get back to Picasso. And initially I thought, oh God, I've done it again. I've got 9 different choices, got to fill them all in. But it's really useful because the thing in CRPGs, when you have 4 choices and you pick one, and the NPC says, "That's interesting," and
That's interesting.
and you suspect they might have said the same thing if you pick the other three choices. This is just inevitable because you can't branch infinitely. So resource-based narrative, where you've got the passion stuff, you've got influences I can give out as tiny bonuses, you've got a really simple relationship system which is constantly bumping up and down. Doing that means you've got some basic valence to any choice you give. So if somebody says, what do you think about bees? And you say, I fucking hate bees. Or you say, bees are nature's defenders. Or you say, I had a bee once. His name was Brian. Then, well done. You've acted with anger or honour or whimsy, and you get a tiny little bonus from that, and you get the thrill of role playing with it.
And so responsiveness, that
but also the point is that the passions that we've chosen for Spencer are passions that you would choose for somebody who looks a bit like John Hurt and David Niven.
Yeah, they're not like ability to wield a club, are they?
Yeah, appetite is on there, lust is not, honour is on there, and ambition is on there, but piety and arrogance are not.
It's actually interesting because, obviously I am a lady, and we talked a lot about whether or not we wanted to do a specific character at the centre of Travelling at Night, an actual named person with a history, or whether we wanted to give the more traditional kind of blank slate that you get in a lot of RPGs, because of course if you give someone a blank slate, they have the most ability the player has the most ability to roleplay, right? Because you can do whatever you like. But the downside of that is if you're trying to tell a specific story, you are immediately in trouble, and of course there are ways you can write around it, but it's much easier to write a really interesting story with a specific person that can be then taken in lots of different ways than with somebody who could literally be anyone, because that's just a very difficult a tall order, shall we say. It
is, but I think it's the thing about anyone. Let me pick my words carefully here because I
you're half a gin down.
No, I'm not going to give offence or anything, but I don't want to give the impression I believe something different from what I believe. One of the ways you can excite people in an RPG or a narrative with choices is by giving them a really specific character. So, classic example of a really specific character, the protag in the Walking Dead Telltale game. And, he's what is he? He's an American history professor, I think. I think he and his wife wanted kids but never had them, which means that he is a sort of educated man. It means that he's very likely to bond with this young girl, becomes the emotional centre. He's black, which becomes relevant a couple of times. Urban, I think Kenny calls him. And that means you make a number of fairly finely tuned choices. Compare him to the average sort of third generation Tolkien descended CRPG character who might be a wizard or a rogue or a thief or a cleric, and is there to get money and XP and finish the main plot, and then make choices along the way. And that means those choices are much less finely tuned. It's like the difference between a chamber orchestra and Carnival Day. Carnival Day, you need to do big things to keep people's attention, and you can do big things. You can have a float with bears on it. But if it's a chamber orchestra, if it's a quartet, then you have to do quite specific things. But one is not better than the other. And the nice thing about Spence...
Very good analogy.
Thank you.
Take the surprise out of my voice.
It's because I'm asleep, so I'm talking in my sleep. Spencer, one of the things I realised about Spencer as I went through and did out basically his CV, Jesus, I kept thinking, he's done a lot in his life. Is that plausible? And it does, it adds up. I mean, he's quite a sort of overachieving fella, and he started young. But he's been a priest, stage magician, writer, served in two military forces, trained as a doctor and finished it. And I thought, well, actually Spencer is almost exactly my age. I'm 53. And I've had 3 careers. And if you knock around long enough, then you do just run into a lot of stuff. And it made me realise how most protagonists tend to be on the younger side, because the CRPG standard is that you start with a blank slate and you build them up. So there's a general sense of a blank slate.
Whereas if you start with a 40-year-old, what have you been doing for 40 years? Yeah.
So this is why, of course, when you can think of games like games where you've got somebody with a long established history, the two giants of the genre are Disco and Planescape Torment. Both of those, you've got a very experienced character who happens to be an amnesiac. Spenny isn't an amnesiac, but he is hollowed out in important ways and is regaining what he was. Anyway, David Niven. Yeah, he was great.
He really but he was complicated, right? So we bloody love him. He is a Hollywood actor, active over both wars, I think. Although he served
well, that's
but in terms of the period. I don't mean
he was post World War One, but he volunteered and went back to Europe for World War Two, when he could quite easily have stayed in America and continued to be rich and successful. But he was British. He was British, to be clear, very British. He was a complicated man. He was clearly a bit of a rascal.
That's exactly the word, a rogue or a rascal.
He liked the ladies
a lot,
and
the ladies liked him.
And the ladies liked him, but he had a couple of he had one happy marriage where his wife, god awfully, it was a couple of House in the Hollywood Hills, a couple of other actors, I can't remember who, but they were playing sardines, and she went to find somewhere to hide, and she fell down the cellar stairs and smashed her head open and died. And they found her there at the end of the evening. Bonkers. And that broke his heart. Bonkers. And then he married this incredibly beautiful Norwegian woman. And
they then had 40 years of miserable marriage.
They had 40 years of miserable marriage, and she ended up having to raise a child he'd had.
By an 18-year-old Swedish
ski
model
guide or something. Yeah. So a really complicated man, but
very
also
funny,
brave, talented, funny, debonair.
Debonair is exactly the word.
And he's
so likeable.
Extraordinary line anecdotes. Although it became clear with the years that David Niven was not a slave to truth, and that he
it was more important that he told a good story.
Exactly. He had a
Hollywood
really varied
should.
Life. And he did lots of interesting things. He also quite happily borrowed anecdotes from other people, or punched up his own anecdotes. My single favourite one, it's brief, it's easy to tell. It's just when he was training to be an army officer, which he sort of nearly got thrown out of more than once, and ultimately led
military discipline does not strike me as his forte.
He led an undistinguished career in the army first time round, and basically sort of deserted while he was in America the first time, and then went back and signed up and fought quite bravely. But quite bravely, he says. I mean,
he was very brave.
He was. But the first time I remember, he's desperate to go into town to get away from his officer training, and it's a really hot day, and this colonel has come in, and he's going to give everyone a talk, and everyone, so paying attention to the back there. So what you have to understand about British Army as an institution, it goes on and on and on. There's like a fly buzzing against the glass, and the air turns thick and golden, and Niven's half asleep and desperate to get away, eventually the colonel comes into his speech and he says, any questions, anybody? And there's this pause, and Niven, to his horror, finds his hand's gone up, and the colonel says, yes, you there. And Niven says, I'm terribly sorry, sir, could you possibly tell me the time? And there's this pause, and the colonel turns to the officer next to him and says, have that man arrested. And he gets locked up, and then he gets drunk with the guys we left to guard him, and he jumps out of the window and goes and meets his date.
That's a very classic Niven story. Yeah. But the part of the reason we chose him, other than he is just extremely charming, like I would say aggressively charming, it's hard not to like this guy, is he firstly is a kind of spirit of the age character. Like
yes, very much so.
He feels like a character that would be unusual today, which I'm very sad about, but it is what it is. And I also think it's really interesting that he's very masculine, but he doesn't look super hench, right? I mean, think of a sort of modern actor today, he's super masculine, and it's like The Rock or like David Gandy or whatever. And David Niven is I would describe him as a clothes horse. Like, he looks very elegant in all kinds of gentleman's clothing, but he's kind of a comedic actor, so he often wears quite garish outfits, but he still kind of pulls them off. But he is clearly really masculine, just in this kind of elegant, lounge lizardy, gentlemanly, Britishy way. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to provide a masculine experience where you're playing a man in a game, but it's not the traditional male thing that you get in like Warhammer, where you're like incredibly strong and you've got a massive weapon.
It is better to die for the Emperor than live for oneself.
The Emperor does not protect.
An open mind is a fortress with gates unbarred and unlocked.
Yeah, every so often AK plays Warhammer and I hear it from across the room. But
you hear it from across the street.
But with this one, we wanted to give a masculine character who was very clearly masculine, was doing something a bit different, but we also wanted to make him something that men actually want to be. And I think, I mean, again, I'm a lady here, so tell me if you think I'm wrong, gentlemen listening to this, but I think one of the things that men actually do quite want to be is really well dressed and kind of debonair. You know, the James Bond fantasy, right? Like, take away the kind of constant romps with all the beautiful Bond girls, but like, I think a lot of men want to be fashionable and cool and effortless and perfectly groomed, but that is warring with, firstly, reality, because most people in the world are not, you know, effortlessly groomed all the time, men and women included. But also, I think particularly for men, you're kind of told often that, like, if you take too much time over your appearance, it's unmasculine. And really what you should be is ideally covered in mud and in a battlefield. And that's kind of true masculinity. Whereas someone like David Niven is so polished and buffed and perfect and silly and whatever, and yet very manly. So I hope that some of Spencer's experiences will both be genuinely, like, attractive to men in terms of being men, but also will be different than the traditional game. So all that. Let me tilt it sideways slightly. So as a man, you know, my ideal male fantasy at the age of 53 Whoa.
is that I get to shuffle around the house all day in my dressing gown and slippers, and then I say something really mischievous to my daughter and she punches me. And at some point someone hands you a sausage sandwich. Exactly, yeah.
The dream.
With brown sauce. And I think there's a very fine... I don't care, I'm tired, we're going to spin off into space. Don't worry, I'll come back to the main topic.
He does David this, Niven. Just stay for the ride.
The Greg Egan, very fine, brilliantly incisive and disciplined and imaginative Australian science fiction author. Started out writing some quite mind-twisty but very accessible and plotty stories about what would, you know, was then still called virtual reality and about the kind of post-cyberpunk thing of what would it mean if your brain were uploaded and you were 23 different people. Great stuff. Over time, he shifted more and more towards aggressively experimental, really hard science fiction. What if we were all sort of like seven-dimensional centipedes and we lived on an asteroid universe that completely different laws of physics? Clearly very clever, way over my head. I stopped reading him, but it's too much. Other people stopped reading him, but it's too much. And and he was asked in an interview why he'd gone so much. And he said, nobody else is writing these kind of books, and there is an audience for them. And I painted myself into a corner here because I've suggested that making Spencer Hobson dress up fancy is like aggressively hard science fiction, seven-dimensional Australian SF. But what I mean is that it's not a widely served fantasy, even if it's not particularly your thing, even if what you mostly like is going judder with a bolter. Or being a ninja or whatever, the sort of standard very successful fantasies, as I often do, to be clear.
Yeah, to be clear, those are great.
The Emperor protect, but he also attack.
Wow.
But there are very few experiences that cater for this. And again, even sort of the greats of the genre, back to Planescape and Disco Elysium, neither of these characters are well dressed, and neither of them could be described as
I mean, I love the
gentlemen.
Nameless One, but I have to say he is neither a gentleman nor usually wearing any clothes to discuss at all. I think at one point I put a ring on him and it bit him.
He's got that sort of skull attached to his nipple, doesn't he?
I'm sorry, does he?
I think so.
I think you might have paid more attention to the Nameless One's nipple than I did.
Well, I couldn't, there was a skull on it. censorship.
So are we back on the ultimate male fantasy here, or are we have we moved on?
Anyway, but this is why we went for the outfit system. You can swap out the garments, but you got a limited. When I say limited, it's I think got 18 planned outfits, so that you lose as a player some of the creative freedom of being able to wear a turquoise hat with golden harem pants.
Wasn't it your kid who said when you were playing Diablo? Wasn't it this? You were playing Diablo and she watched you play it for a bit, and then you hadn't played it, and she came and said, "When are you going to play that dress-up game again?"
No, this was Tom Chick, the world's greatest games journalist, who so sadly no longer does games journalism. Talking about his girlfriend or a friend's girlfriend who kept talking about the dress-up game, and they realised you meant Diablo. Actually meant Diablo.
Right, well, I'm very sorry, Tom Check. I didn't mean to steal your anecdote, but yes. So the fact that Diablo and games like it are called the dress-up game tells you everything you need to know, right? And I love a bit of Diablo, but you are constantly swapping out things. And I remember particularly there was an awful. It haunts me to this day. I was really enjoying Diablo 2 or something.
Pants.
Yes, it's the blood. Right, okay. I don't find toilet humour funny at all. I'm super British about this, which apparently means everyone I know, literally everyone in my life, finds toilet humour really funny when I'm there, because I am so po-faced about it. It's like, it's not acceptable. And so I was enjoying my game of Diablo, and I got this random drop of these trousers from my totally beautiful monk character, whatever she was, and they were sort of snake green, and their power was that basically anytime someone hit you, it produced a cloud of noxious green gas. That meant that kind of you were really suddenly brilliant at managing hordes of enemies, which anyone who's played Diablo will tell you. It's really important that you can manage loads of enemies at once. So I was stuck from the level kind of 5, where I'd happened to have this good luck to find these amazing trousers that happened to work really well with my build, wearing what were then termed fart pants for the rest of the whole game. And again, if you haven't played Diablo, it's a very like highfalutin concept about like a battle between hell and heaven, and like angels and archdemons.
Or hell and hell.
Yes, and it was just very sad to be wearing these ridiculous trousers. So, we wanted to avoid turning a man who was supposed to be this very dashing, debonair, put-together person into somebody who might wear fart pants. And we want the character to always look good, so that the player, whether or not they're role-playing, the myriad of versions of Spencer that you can, will always feel, I'm looking pretty good today, or I'm looking pretty put together, just because everyone knows that kind of MMO weird outfit thing. And we just didn't think that it fit.
No, I know exactly what you mean by the MMO weird. I have to wear this
because the stats are just good, but you look like a moron. And then that's why everyone has the transmogrifier. Like I just came across that amazing gigantic gold golem called like the Impritificationer in Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. That
Pathfinder : Wrath of the Righteous.
What if I don't put the colon in? Then it will come out the end.
I just like colons in names. I think they lend them some grandeur. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
You were literally stroking your beard as you said that.
I wouldn't call it the beard. It's more a sort of lack of personal hygiene.
Yeah, so Alexis is not the basis.
It's been a tough week, guys.
Did you want to talk about anything else you've been working on, or did you want to crawl into a hole and
Ubu
collapse? Oh yeah, okay. This is great.
I mean, I think we should spoil Ubu, although he has quite a minimal role. But on Tiba, the game begins was one of the haunts of Picasso. And Picasso, we learned, had an owl
that he was obsessed with.
Yeah, called Ubu. And I think they found the owl in the studio, and he nursed him back to health.
We went and saw. We recently went to south of France, and we went to a Picasso museum. Well, it was meant to be a holiday, but obviously we're mad. And we went to this Picasso museum, which I was pretty underwhelmed by. But what we discovered, in part, was that he found this owl that he then indoctrinated into his life and called him Ubu, and then was obsessed with him and made like hundreds of paintings of this owl. And because it's Picasso, it looks super derpy all the time. And he made all these sculptures where like the eyes are half falling off, and it kind of does look like a drunk 4-year-old has been out the paper mache. But he just thought there was something really profound in Ubu, and now you have recreated Ubu.
I have.
Briefly.
Ubu used to bite him, and I think he said he liked that because nobody else would bite him. But he's Picasso, and they're all a bit frightened of him. But Ubu didn't give a shit.
I think, based on my knowledge of Picasso, probably quite a lot of people who wanted to bite him.
But they didn't.
They didn't. He was
a
well-known gentleman you shouldn't bite.
Ubu. So we're putting this you're
feeling good?
I am. No, it's these things.
We've had a lot of psychology this week,
we've crossed
listeners.
the bar. We've actually got a release candidate on on Steam now.
Sorry, say that again?
We've got a release candidate on Steam now for the pre-alpha. We're a long way from.
No, but that's a big deal.
It is a big
You've been
deal.
really stressed about it and quite down. And one of the problems of game dev is, of course, if you are day in and day out staring at this thing, all of the magic and charm and fun that you're trying to build into this thing dissipates because you don't see any of that because A, you know it back and forwards, and B, you're only looking at the problems. You're not sitting back and actually playing it. So it's very easy to end up in a situation when you're like, oh God, it's awful, which is one of the many reasons that we want to get an alpha out so that people can tell us if it is or not, which we think it isn't. We think it's quite good. But
Lottie wrote a blog post today full of very beautiful pictures, and she referred to it as an alpha. And I said, oh, you can't call it an alpha, it's a pre-alpha. And she said, well, is there any difference? I was like, yes.
To your soul.
And she's like, explain the difference. I said, well, a pre-alpha's like
before
the alpha. And this is the thing, beta means it's not ready. Alpha means it's so not ready we can't even call it a beta. Pre-alpha means, look, this is basically wearing a bag over our head to cover our blushes. So we'll say.
Just to be more useful, because when I came into the industry, I didn't actually know what the difference was. A beta, I think, usually means that you've got a feature-complete game that is fully representative of what the final game would be, but you haven't finished ironing out all the bugs or putting in all the content, right? But if you play a beta of something, most people expect it to be pretty far along. Whereas if you play an alpha, the reason that we differentiate is because an alpha might be missing some really key features or mechanics or something, or it might just be only playable on one computer at exactly the right temperature Kelvin, but it's meant to be a sort of very early janky build of the game. And a pre-alpha, I feel, is you being particularly careful because you don't want to overpromise.
That's it.
But,
and then we can say we can go from pre-alpha to alpha,
post-alpha,
and post-alpha, alpha plus, alpha colon, what are the righteous
.mp4.
But the thing about beta, or beta, as I believe,
it's not what we say.
It's what Americans say, and they invented it. I mean, they did invent the
You need
letter.
to stop speaking like an American. You're not Bessie Bloom.
I shall walk like an
Put
Egyptian.
the girl down.
But it's kind of like smart casual. It used to mean something, but then somebody, comes along wearing, at one point smart casual did involve chinos, and now it probably involves Bermuda shorts. So beta's kind of like that.
Sorry, I can't take smart casual seriously because I knew this girl from university who went on to get married, and she was a complicated lady, and she went to some...
What's happening?
She went to some wedding planner, and the wedding planner, as part of the planning process, was like, okay, well, for you and your partner, we need to come up with some words that define you and your partner as a couple to help us ideate the wedding. And one of the words that they came up with to describe themselves as a couple was semi-formal. And I always thought, really? What is, I don't even know.
You see, Trump said today is permanently pausing migration. I think a lot about that now. Permanently pausing. It's a new paradigm. The permanently pausing, semi-formal, business, smart casual, beta, alpha. So the thing is,
beta.
Beata does mean something specific, but then people just put it out when they put it out, and then you fire at
a beta
allegedly feature complete thing, and it crashes, and the computer catches fire, and then your house catches fire, and the dog dies, and then you email the developer and say, here's a picture of my dog who used to be so handsome, now he is sausages, and they say, oh, sorry, we should have called it alpha. It doesn't really...
I think the opposite actually happens in games because, there's a thing called early access on Steam where the idea really originally was people could put out games that were not feature complete, usually at beta stage, and they could get a lot of input from real players to help them make the game really good. And then when the game was ready, having taken on board all the feedback, they'd put it out as 1.0 and it would be a full launch. And that is a total lie. What has now become is games are put out in early access in an incredibly polished state. They are absolutely version 1.0 launch ready builds, but they are put out in early access either to make the developer feel more comfortable or to allow for ongoing development with money coming in, because you actually pay for the copy of the game, although it tends to be cheaper in early access than it does at launch, a full launch. And so I think there is increasing pressure on developers these days to put out increasingly polished games. Same with the demos. Steam Neckfest started, and basically you sort of painted a picture of your mum and said, this is my gam, and you put it up, and everyone said, oh, that's quite a nice gam, well done, I like your mum. And these days the advice is constantly your demo has to be really polished, it has to be really impressive, because everyone's kind of now playing playing the game of making a demo.
I saw some good advice on Reddit.
No, you didn't.
Well, it was off Reddit, but then somebody cited it on Reddit.
All right, okay. Source.
So there's a bloke who is making a Sixth History game. That's our community license, and he was he started blogging about the experience of making it. If I say The Matter of Being, that's the name, then I sound like I'm plugging it. We have no connection with it, so I don't know. But he's obviously a determined and intelligent chap, so I'm sure it's very good. Anyway, he's been blogging about it. One of the things he said was, you need to be aware of the level of polish and quality expected in your genre, and so there are some, like a Vampire Survivor style game. It could look like my kid made it in a hurry. Because it's all about the gameplay and because the aesthetic is sort of aggressively minimal or retro. If you are making a city builder, then if you have not invested sufficiently in quality of life, then the reviewers aren't going to stop at leaving bad reviews. They're going to come out of the house exactly and paint them on your garden wall.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you're unlucky,
I think
they
this
do it
is
in your blood.
part of the reason for the rise of what is unpleasantly termed sort of friend slop on Steam at the minute, which I believe defines.
That's a Chris Sikowski special, isn't it?
Well, I don't think it is actually. I think it was sort of more general. But anyway,
Okay.
I don't know. But friend slop defines a currently very popular genre of game on Steam, which is extremely low quality in terms of polish, but has some incredibly engaging core mechanical game loop, and it is almost always co-op and multiplayer. And it's, games like this are doing gangbusters. So you see, new and trending in Steam's front page, and you see a bunch of games that are clearly produced over decades by teams of hundreds in AAA, and next to them, and possibly outperforming them, is one called like My Friend Duck. And it looks like, as you say, your kid made it in Roblox, and it's got 30,000 reviews and it launched yesterday, and people are genuinely loving it. And I think you're right. Something like that can come out because it's presented as a sort of zany, fun, casual thing with a relatively low price point, versus if you're putting out, something that describes itself as a super impressive, grimdark, Souls-like. If that's janky like that, people will just be like, what is this? This is nonsense.
And it's one of the things that I do actually love about games, seriously. I keep trying to sound cynical, but I'm not really very good at it. We've been talking recently. There has been. This is not a novel insight. I've seen other people talk about it. Lots of TV shows look great and are kind of meh because it's so relatively cheap. It only costs $100 million or whatever to make a TV show look really, really slick and glossy, and that used to be a sort of mark of quality, and now it's just a mark that somebody threw sufficient money at you. And I don't, very few TV shows survive, relatively few independent films survive while looking rough as. But a game can look rough as, not because it's low quality, but because the quality's in there somewhere in some different aspect.
Well, I always think of RimWorld. That's all my go-to example, and to be clear, RimWorld is not only just an unbelievably successful game.
She's going to diss the art style of RimWorld, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not. I'm actually going to diss the modded, updated version of the art. And I'm not dissing it. What I'm doing is describing it. So the first time I saw RimWorld was on your screen, and I had thought actually you'd maybe booted up the BIOS incorrectly or something, because I didn't realise what that was, and I'd heard of RimWorld, and then I don't know, it's got something like 250,000 reviews on Steam, which means it does okay. It's one of the most successful PC games ever. Initially was made by one guy, and now it's a very small team running it. It's an absolutely phenomenally, brilliantly successful game, and much deserved. Okay, so that's the thing. But I would not say that art is its a feature. It is not particularly interested in being the most beautiful game on Steam, and that's fine, because the point of it is this very systems orientated, kind of constantly evolving narrative simulator thing. So you don't need totally gorgeous art, which is good because it doesn't have it. And it turns out what I had thought was actually some sort of weird BIOS that you'd booted up was actually the version of RimWorld which added the beautiful art mod onto the base game. I've never actually seen the base game. I think if I did, I might die. But I think this is a great example of exactly what you're saying, that like not all games have to have all the same priorities. For example, our game won't be very polished because there's two of us, so Lamau. But something like,
Well, let's circle
Football
back.
Manager has to be polished.
Circle back and finish this in a way that makes it sound like we planned it. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, except my brain turned off when you said Football Manager, so I don't know what you said after that. Oh God, I was on a BAFTA jury one year and I had to play Football Manager.
To be fair, I think Football Manager is really good, but
sure
you
it
both
is.
A, hate football, and B, don't particularly like UI managey games. So it just wasn't for
I love
you.
UI manager games.
Yeah?
Cultist Simulator.
No, but that's got cards.
That's true. Anyway,
This is really like
sorry if
a
you like
settings
football
menu.
people. I know lots of people do.
The kick men.
Yeah. Games that can be so the thing about where we got ourselves into a pickle, which you've now unpickled, is that Travelling at Night is a CRPG that doesn't look like CRPGs. What it looks like is Lottie's art and Adrian's art, but Lottie's art style owes a lot to graphic design and is neat, satisfying and colourful. It's not
Well, it's a deliberate reaction to the grim dark 3D
exactly. So
realism.
I was hesitating before it said it's not grim dark, but I didn't want to sound like I was saying the ladies put pink ribbons on it.
No, but that was a concern, and I certainly didn't want to put some people off, because I know that the majority of PC gamers are, I think, still men, and that some men particularly want an aesthetic, a grimdark aesthetic, and that's fine and great. But we wanted to say from the first screenshot you see of Travelling that it doesn't look like any other CRPG. We didn't want anyone to think that we were copying anybody else. That happens to be the style of art that I draw anyway, and it was this kind of evolution of our previous two games' art style, so it all kind of naturally fit. And we wanted it to be illustrative and kind of sort of folklore-y, bookish, rather than trying to do a 3D realistic environment, because that gives us a lot of interesting things to play with. And one of the things I'm actually most interested in our game from a visual point of view is we've incorporated a bunch of quite theatrical stage
Dogville
marketing.
effect.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Dogville. Do you want to talk about
Flipping
Dogville?
love that. Dogville, made by it's a very depressing film.
It does sound really
by
depressing.
the brilliant Lars von Trier, who's a
well-known joy.
iconic and hyper-talented Danish director, of whom somebody I used to know once said, I can see he's really good, but his films always feel like I'm being lectured to by a twat. He's brilliant and divisive. Dogville is notable in particular for taking place entirely on a stage where all the buildings are marked out,
like they would be on a
Yeah.
stage at the theatre.
Yeah.
And they particularly lean into the theatricality. And so for example, she'll be in a house and it will have a white boundary marking the walls of a house that she will then have to respect or not, in a sort of deliberately stagey way, to break the fourth wall in a way and say, I'm stepping over this fake wall that we've all agreed is a wall because I can. And we wanted to do something similar in Travelling, not to emulate Lars von Trier, but because it allows you to do a lot of really interesting things in a sort of meta area. So, for example, there's a big white arrow pointing up a staircase, and it allows us to reference the world of the secret histories in a deliberately non-realistic way. Because we'd have to decide a bunch of things if we were going to realistically depict, for example, the Mansus, the world behind the world, which we don't want to do. A lot of your work is elusive and suggestive rather than specific and descriptive. And the moment you represent something visually, you have to make a bunch of choices that you don't have to make if you're describing something in text. So something like a kind of theatrical meta language of visual stuff allows you to reference this stuff in an interesting way without actually saying, here is what it looks like. Which we couldn't have done if we were making a game with an art style that was much more, true to life, or high resolution, because that would, I think, look odd. But with our illustrative,
and this
thing,
has led to some dawning for me as well, because most of the work I've done for most of my career has been very text-forward games, where you don't see any illustration of the player's environment at all, or you do, but you're looking at a ship from a long way up, and so I, even Book of Hours, you're looking at the room, you don't actually see your character moving around, and I had to thread my way around saying things like, the air chills. That's fine, I can say that. And a mist gathers in the corners. Oh, can I say that? Because they might notice there's not a mist. Or they might not care because they're so enthralled by the text, or because the UI is blocking out everything they can see. But it's a real thing. And it means that we exist in a beneficent suspension with the player, where we all understand that what we're weaving together is an illusion and no Einbanda, and we don't have to have fancy lighting in order to make them feel like they're there.
Which is good, because I spent, at least a full 8 hours today trying to make Spencer have a bloody shadow, and I still haven't finished it. So I'm glad we don't have to do anything complicated with lighting. Well, shall we end it there, or did you have anything else you want to say before the alpha hits the scene?
By the time somebody hears this, because it's going out on Monday, isn't it? Statistically, there'll be at least one person listening to this who will have an alpha key in their hot little hands. Yeah. I think we should reassure people that he fixed the bug with Spencer's trousers disappeared.
His trousers did disappear for quite a while, but only at one particular angle, so it was a bit sort of risky.
Yeah, we turned round.
Yeah, and then he didn't have any pants. Well, yeah, that's not in the build anymore. But, if you email us, maybe we can get you a private special build.
No, do not email us and ask for a special build. You've not been doing game dev for long enough, They will. I already got somebody asking me for the flipping Sulo cut today after I posted a picture of the cache on the keyboard. Right.
All right, we're going away. You need to go and lie down for a very long time.
Good night, everyone. Have a spooky day.